everyone's ready, I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you would please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. That takes us to the adoption of the agenda. I can have a motion to adopt the agenda. Thank you, Ms. Schroeder. And second, thank you, Mr. Light. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. I'll let the minutes for this evening reflect that all the commissioners are present. And that takes us to the adoption of the minutes for April 17th, 2024. If anyone has any input on those or a motion to adopt them.
Make a motion to adopt.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second for the minutes?
I can second that.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. That takes us to our one and only agenda item for the evening, SC 24-0401, Coates Country Inn. Would you mind to do that for us, please, Ms. Summers?
Thank you. Special exception 240401 by Codes Tax Map number 38-39C, located on Woodward Road, 25 acres. The applicants and owners, Mr. and Mrs. Coates, have requested a special exception permit for a country inn pursuant to 170-36D and 170-65E. What they are proposing is a country inn with 8 lodging units with a small number of accessory structures in a rural setting. Each lodging unit will be approximately 400 to 500 square feet with its own bathroom, shower, bedroom, kitchenette, and outdoor seating area. They will also be equipped with a fire extinguisher, fire blanket, smoke and carbon monoxide detector, and a list of emergency phone numbers. The applicants plan to preserve the property to the greatest extent. They plan to be selective in the removal of trees and the clearing to accommodate the lodging units. All structures will be set back 100 feet from the nearest property line and dispersed at least 50 feet from one another. They do plan to construct their own residence on this property, allowing them to oversee the construction of this and the ongoing activities. BoardDocs commented that the property is currently being served by a private entrance off Route 600 Woodward Road. Based on their field observations, the existing entrance access needs to be improved to a low-volume commercial entrance. BoardDocs has no objections to the request once the improvements have been made. The health department commented that the Eco Retreat includes 8 one-bedroom cabins to be rented out as transient lodging. The on-site sewage disposal review team conducted a preliminary review of the proposal as a courtesy to the applicant, and the proposal appears to be in general conformance with our regulations. A more thorough review will be conducted at the time of the construction permit application, which may include a review of the soils on the site. There is a proposed drinking water well for this lodge, and once in operation, this office recommends an annual sample be done to check the potability of the drinking water. Staff has recommended the following conditions: compliance with BoardDocs regulations, compliance with Virginia Department of Health regulations, no events permitted, the maximum number of adults at any one time shall not exceed twice the number of lodging units. Thus, the maximum overnight occupancy shall be 16 for the 8 lodging units. No on-site food service facility or restaurant shall be permitted. All lodging units should be equipped with fire extinguisher, fire blanket, smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector, and a list of emergency contact numbers in a highly visible location within each unit. Exterior lighting in the excess of 60 watts or the LED equivalent shall be down shielded. Amplified outdoor music is prohibited. Quiet hours shall be observed from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. The exterior coverings of any dome lodging shall be earth tone in color to blend with the surrounding forest. The property shall have a full-time manager, either by an owner living on the property or by a local caretaker. At any time, at least one of the lodging units is being rented. The personal residential dwelling constructed on the property shall not be rented for transient lodging purposes. All residential dwellings, lodging units, and accessory structures shall be set back at least 100 feet from property lines. Retreat guests shall be notified of any proper conditions concerning guest conduct. For example, quiet hours, prohibition on amplified music, etc. prior to arrival. And finally, the lodging units and any supporting accessory structures may be constructed in phases. The applicants are here tonight.
All right, at this
If there's
time,
any questions.
would the applicant care to make a presentation at this time?
Yes.
Just this here.
There, there. That's the head.
Easy,
Got
easy. Yeah, no presentation, but I did, and thank you, did just want to say a few things before we get going here. My name is Eddie Coates. I'm the applicant and property owner along with my wife Terry, and just wanted to begin by thanking the members of the Planning Commission for your time and attention to our application, and to Ms. Summers for helping us get to this point and answering our questions and giving us guidance. I guess I want to more formally introduce my wife, Terry Coates, and business partner, co-applicant, who you'll likely hear from later during the Q&A period. Is my mic, am I getting close enough for you all? She's also our architect on the project. I'd like to just spend 5 minutes or less introducing ourselves, as well as briefly touching on why we earnestly believe that this small eco-retreat concept is a really good fit, not only for Rappahannock County, but also this specific piece of property. I'm not going to spend much time touching on the technical aspects of the plan or the application, and assume that we can get into that as needed, and with Ms. Summers' help, we can pull up any of the exhibits that we need to dive deeper into on the display here. As I hope you can tell, Terry and I have put a lot of heart and soul and effort into this application and plan. It's something we have thought about very deeply, and it's very personal to us because we would be moving to Rappahannock County full-time to embark on this new chapter with our 2-year-old son in order to create and build and operate this eco-retreat. For those of you who are able to visit the property over the last week or so, I think it's easy to get a sense for just how sort of concealed the top of this property is with the dense tree cover and the topography. Similarly, the way that the driveway sort of wraps up and around the hillside, obscuring any views from Woodward Road, I think adds to that. And I get that gets at the key point of this, which is that it's really the privacy of this specific piece of land that make it an ideal fit for this use, both from a neighbor impact perspective and from the perspective of future guests who are seeking that sort of privacy and nature immersive experience. And maintaining that retreat-like privacy and seclusion is a major priority for us. We want to create something that's an experience that's totally unique within Rappahannock County and really for all of Virginia for that matter. I think it's also important to mention that we do have some small-scale hospitality experience. We have been Airbnb superhosts since 2019 when we bought and renovated a 4-plex row house in Washington, D.C., and then promptly moved in. And we've been living in that house and welcoming short-term guests ever since. And I just bring this up because when you opt into living amongst guests coming in and out of your personal home, especially when you have a small child, you quickly grow very adept at how to manage towards good guest behavior. And I think that experience has uniquely equipped us to be successful with managing this endeavor, and also inform some of the design decisions that we've made with the property, including limiting the occupancy to 2 adults for each of the lodging units. So just to wrap up, I'd like to emphasize again our efforts to create something that we believe is consistent with the core values of the county. a light footprint on the land, something that's sort of respective of privacy and view sheds, local in its ownership and small in its scale. We were attracted to this part of the county and this specific piece of land for the same reasons that the neighbors were attracted to it, and likely the same reasons that all of you were attracted to it. The sort of the peacefulness, the tree cover, the sounds of nature, and those are all things that we are very committed to protecting, and I hope that comes through in what we've put forward here. I don't think you're going to find another lodging or hospitality concept that is being more thoughtfully pursued than what we're trying to do here. So with that, we look forward to answering any questions that you have about the application, and we also know that there were quite a few letters and emails that were provided to the commission in the last few days, so we hope that as part of this discussion, you'll give us a chance to respond to those. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the public hearing. And at this time, I'll go ahead and declare the public hearing open on the Coates Country Inn. If you would like to comment on this application, please raise your hand. And everyone, please raise your hands now so I see just how many people would like to speak. Okay. So, and all that, but not everybody always wants to speak. Some people are just along for the ride. So in light of the number of hands that I'm seeing, I would ask that you keep your comments to 3 to 5 minutes maximum. If you can piggyback on someone else's comments in the interest of brevity, that's always much appreciated because it is quite a bit of information to get to and we want to hear from everyone. So with that being said, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand, come to the mic, identify yourself and the district in which you reside, and I appreciate it. Up first.
Good evening. My name is John Flowers. I'm about a decade-long resident now of Rappahannock County. I'm one of the adjacent landowners to the applicant's proposed 8-dwelling commercial development on top of scenic Redlands Mountain off of Woodward Road in Sperryville. I've provided you all with a topographical map off of Google Earth where you can see the adjacent landowners who are all opposed to this proposed development. Additional pictures in your packet include a view of Redlands Mountain from our home looking east over Woodward Road during the winter. It's clearly visible at least 6 months out of the year from our front yard. My wife Rebecca and I love our home, our neighbors, and our county's rural character. Our property is under a conservation easement with the Shenandoah National Park. The county's comprehensive plan includes a highly relevant caption that reads, quote, "When asked about what should never change about Rappahannock County, responses generally reference the natural beauty and the zoning restrictions that control development," end quote. Also, principle number 7 of the comprehensive plan states that the county will promote only economic growth that is compatible with the environmental quality and rural character and does not adversely affect residential neighborhoods. The proposed development would shatter that principle, as well as other critical parts of the county's plan. Those of us adjacent to the proposed commercial development all signed a joint letter to members of this commission on 12 May that explains in more detail our opposition, and we don't see any scenario where the proposed development complies with the current zoning ordinances. In our letter, we address 5 specific points. 1, the proposed development fundamentally and adversely impacts surrounding rural and residential conservation and agricultural area and its current and future residents, including its wildlife. 2, the development will result in an unacceptable increase in traffic and safety risks to residents and county visitors. Woodward Road is a beautiful and scenic narrow winding mountain road used for decades by residents and tourists alike for walking, hiking, and biking, as you can see in the pictures that I provided you. It's common to see cars parked just outside of town in Sperryville at the road's end, with folks taking a walk to enjoy its serenity, special serenity, and cyclists from around the region. It's infamous for cyclists to come out here and enjoy Woodward Road's beauty and steep mountain climbs, particularly the section right in front of this proposed development. 3, the development will increase an inevitable increase in noise and light pollution. 4, the development will undermine the principles of the county's comprehensive plan And lastly, 5, the development is not in full compliance with the zoning code. We have additional concerns shared by residents of the wider neighborhood regarding the development's impact on our property values, with at least one licensed realtor in our county already warning of this development's negative impact to our surrounding landowners' property values. There are also concerns this development does not meet the very low-density residential use requirements of a conservation district. With no existing well on the mountaintop and the prevalent bedrock in the area, there are no guarantees we'll get good water here, with concerns on the availability of adequate water for the drain field, as well as the impact such a significant size commercial development would have on the surrounding neighbor's water supply. It's not unreasonable to believe that a development this size at this location may end up requiring a sizable central sewage facility rather than individual private systems. Other concerns include the significant risk of wildfire and emergency access to the mountaintop and the absence of a fully compliant site plan for such a commercial development. Lastly, there are compliance issues with Virginia Code on the Preservation of Mountains, Section 15.2-4301 of the Code of Virginia, Goal number 2, that advocates the protection of mountains and scenic ridgetops with special concern for crests and ridges. Finally, recognizing you are waiting to hear from others in our neighborhood and the county that object to the proposed development, I'll conclude with another key quote from the county's 2020 comprehensive plan. Quote, "While this committee may have much to learn from our neighbors to the east, and while the economic forces that have shaped them have and will continue to be brought bear upon us, we nevertheless feel Rappahannock County is unique, and there is a natural beauty and order that command our respect." Thanks to all the members of the Planning Commission for your service to our county. We do appreciate your work, time, and effort, and we all respectfully ask that you recommend disapproval of this proposed commercial development in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Flowers, and quick background on myself. John and I have been on the mountain for 10 years. He's actually been there longer than 10, but my background is I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher in surrounding counties for 20 plus years, and I also studied conservation biology at George Mason University. So one of the reasons and one of the things we bonded over initially were the black bears. I worked on a project to a genetic study of the black bears in the Shenandoah National Park in 2003. I went down to the GW forest and we sent the black bear there as well and determined that we could actually interbreed the black bear for better genetic health. So that's actually how I met him in the first place. So the mountain that the Coates are discussing right now, we've been hiking it for years, and in 2020, it was our respite. It was our getaway from our property and see the world, because it really is 360-degree views up there. It's quite beautiful. It's a gorgeous piece of land. It's a steep, steep climb to get up there, and it'll keep you winded. But when I was up there in 2021, I saw a black bear with 3 cubs. And I don't know if you know what this means to me, but that tells me that there is a robust and healthy black bear population in the Shenandoah National Park. And I know that you don't love having them in your trash cans, and I don't blame you in the least, but I did convince John to put his trash can in the garage. So there is a plan for mediating that. So also we had special concerns for the black bear, so I'm just going to bring those up again. We spoke with the leading manufacturer of these geodesic domes in Oregon, and the dwellings do include a quality structural steel frame for heavy winds and snow. However, they are not hard-sided like a traditional home. And while they do offer a more expensive heavy-duty PVC long-life fabric, the shell is not bear-proof, and it will not keep bear out. We fear routine food storage and preparation at these domes will educate the bear population to be more bold in their foraging for food and increase the bear nuisance issues that we don't experience very much out here among rural mountain residents accepted our trash cans outside because they seem to be more bear aware than tourists. And that certainly bears out because we have actually traveled extensively in the national parks across the country and in other areas where bear are. It is a nightmare to stay in a campground because there's movement all night long. We understand that short-term renters are considered tourist homes in Rappahannock County zoning code and are allowed by special permit. But one of the requirements must be met is that the units must have the appearance of a single-family residence and meet minimum acreage requirements. These domes, as presented in the proposed development, clearly do not. And I recommend that you not entertain the concept. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Good evening, I'm Ruth Greenstein. We have a house at 480 Woodward, which is also on Red Man Mountain and just downhill from the applicants. I want to endorse John's, wherever he is, John's comments and about general concerns with the incompatibility of this proposal and both the sense of community in our part of the county and also inconsistency with the comprehensive plan. But what I wanted to do today was to touch on two issues that are probably more relevant or nearer to me than to some of the other folks from whom you'll be hearing because of our closer proximity to the applicant and the physical relationship between their land and ours. The two issues are on the one hand traffic and on the other erosion and possibility of landslides and mud flows. On traffic, as everyone I'm sure will agree, the main issue is safety. This is a long, unpaved, windy, hilly, gravel road that in wet weather like this can easily become muddy and slick. But beyond the safety issues, which must be paramount, there's also the issue of noise. Vehicles create noise. When in 2022, VDOT did a traffic check on the intersection of Ashby and Woodward, and they clocked an average of 18 vehicles daily, midweek. 18 isn't all that much, but we hear just about every one of them from our cabin up on the hill, even though we're quite far set back. And in fact, it's often so loud that we come out just to check that they're not really on our driveway instead of on the public road. The proposal with its 8 geodesic domes, the owner's home, some additional, a common building and some additional structures. Also has parking for all cars. And, but the relevant part here is that the people in those geodesic domes don't get food or entertainment at the Echo Retreat. So they're going to have to come into town, and the only way they can get out of that retreat is on Woodward Road. That's the only exit. And so if you figure that that means each geodesic dome generates at least 2 round trips a day, that the 18 per day that VDOT measured 2 years ago is likely to become 60. And there's a big difference in how much noise you get from 18 vehicles and what you get from 60 vehicles. And frankly, that's beginning to sound like Warrenton. The other issue is erosion. As I mentioned a moment ago, that in addition to the 8 geodesic domes, they also have parking and they're proposing a couple of septic fields. And I assume, but don't know, that there's also going to be underground piping for both sewage and water, perhaps also for power. And that to me suggests that there's going to have to be a fair amount of clearing and tree removal up on the top of this hilly, rocky slope. those of you who remember 1995 will remember that there was a horrific landslide in Madison County. So bad that the county was deemed a national disaster area. One of the things that the Geologic Survey folks said when asked about how do you prevent that was to say that folks should, quote, support your local government in efforts to develop and enforce land use and building ordinances that regulate construction in areas susceptible to landslide and debris flows. Buildings should be located away from steep slopes. And as we all know, the proposed Echo Lodge is very near the top of a rocky, steep slope. And as someone who lives below them, I find the prospect of a landslide pretty scary. So for all the reasons that others have mentioned and these, I urge that the commissioners vote negatively on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Margie White. I've lived in Rappahannock County for 40 years. I live right opposite the driveway of the proposed development. This spring, when bears are hungry, I had a visitor. I feed my cat indoor the laundry room, and it's a glass door. And I was standing inside feeding the cat when my cat turned around, looked at me with shock, and what's that noise? I looked up, and 2.5 feet away from my face, through the glass door, was a standing black bear on my deck. I'm not sure how a city residents out here for rest and recreation would react to a bear who is usually always hungry. And to leave a half a sandwich on the deck outside of their little proposed cabin is an enticement that a bear really, really enjoys. So I just want to say that one time, maybe 15 years ago, a bear was in the kitchen of the log cabin that we rent to tenants. And they can climb, and they can climb into windows, and they can rip things with their claws. They're very handy, and they're capable of doing great damage. I just want to know whether the owners of this property would teach or post or do something for bear awareness. And I'm here for the tenants of this proposed development. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you very much.
You're
I'm sorry.
recognized.
Fourth time's gonna be the charm for you, Doug. I'm so sorry. You're next.
My name is Monica Worth, and I live in the Piedmont District at 473 Woodward, adjacent to the property being discussed. Some folks here know that I was president at Flint Hill Volunteer Fire and Rescue Company for probably 20 years ago, when I lived in Flint Hill, qualifying. I have great respect for the work done by volunteers in Rappahannock County. And as I look at Principle 7 of the county's code, as a comprehensive plan, as Mr. Flowers related, it does say to promote only economic growth that assists or that does not adversely affect active farm operations, forestry operations, and residential neighborhoods, among other provisions. Well, my property is an agricultural use with livestock. We have cows. I have cows. At the back of the property, there are trees with trunks that are charred by fire from a fire break that was cut to contain a wildfire in 2000. Margie is my backyard neighbor. At that time, her house, well, since that time, her house has been phoned 3 times with a fire within feet of the home, and her son-in-law has spent the night on the roof of the garden hose. There were 3 abreast bulldozers cutting a fire break during that fire, and even a Native American hotshot team was setting back fires. That was then. As you all know, just 8 weeks ago, a wildfire on adjacent Ashby Road was joined by one in the park, basically one in front of my place and one in back, with high winds and a fire service strained by 6 other fires in the county. I think we ended up turning that number up a little more by the end of the day or the day, 2 days. And that was despite support from surrounding jurisdictions. In a dome at the top of a very steep, heavily forested mountain, it's really easy to feel away from it all. People don't always use good judgment, especially when on vacation or getting away from it all. In response to concerns about the application, activities like stargazing, campfires, reading, yoga, etc. are certainly recreation and amusement was sent out by the applicants, and they're set out as possible ways visitors can entertain themselves. Frankly, I'm almost more concerned about someone stepping away from view to have a cigarette. Maybe even these days, more likely to smoke a joint. Smoking's against the rules, I'm sure, but who will enforce it at 3 in the morning? Owners in their house, a manager's gone home for the night, a local co-manager that was mentioned in the application is available but not on site at all. Enforcement is an issue around public safety concerns, be they roads, wildlife conflicts, or fire safety. And bringing people unfamiliar with the precautions and risks inherent in the qualities of life they came here to enjoy are nothing new to the Park Service or anyone in our neighborhood. Bringing new groups of people every few days, regardless of the season or conditions, utterly changes the atmosphere of the neighborhood and adversely affects those of us who live around it. It's hard on the environment and it's hard on county services as well. I just see no compelling need to introduce new risks into a quiet, peaceful, and seasoned community of neighbors who cherish and protect and preserve their places, respecting the provisions of planning and zoning that support them and the entire county in it. Why in the world do we want to overcome the objections of adjacent and nearby neighbors to add the variables of quite possibly a lot more human beings than live in the neighborhood now, who are not invested in the lives of neighbors? They're unfamiliar with the realities of their surroundings and coming here to play with them. By granting a special exception to invite opportunities to challenge the well-being of this well-balanced and well-zoned neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eckler.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Can I move the microphone over here, because I want to point to you. Or maybe you can hear me if I just walk over here.
Well, I think it does come off the stand if you can remove the mic,
Oh,
and there's
okay.
enough wire.
I won't do it very often, I promise.
Please confirm for the record your name and the district in which you reside.
I certainly will now. My name is John Douglas Epley. As most of you know, I go by Doug. I've been an election official for, how many, 10, 15 years now.
Hold the mic up.
Okay.
That helps.
You want to start from the beginning?
No,
Oh, no, okay.
I know who you are.
Yeah, most people do. I've been an election official. We worked at food pantry, with senior citizens. We provide free rides to people. We came here not too long ago in 1965, and we came here to be part of the community, not to change the community, and not as a business opportunity. Now, the reason I wanted to come over here is this is a nice plaque here, a chart. It has elevations on it. And members of the board, did you open up my email with the, okay, I can pass this out maybe to the other people. Well, yeah, if there's single copies, maybe you can just walk around with them. Let me just walk here since I got the mic.
I just want to say further that the procedure here is to please address your comments to the commission.
Yes, ma'am.
That we most appreciate.
Okay. So the idea is you have to understand the topology of where this is going. It's on the top of a hill with steep sides. That's why we've heard comments about safety with the fire. We were also part of that fire. Had the smoke jumpers, Lakota smoke jumpers that came and were bivouacked at our place. So the proposed residence is at the very peak of the mound that you just looked at. If that peak is shaved, if that peak is shaved off, the trees shaved off, you got a beautiful, beautiful 360-degree view of the entire county and Shenandoah National Park. That's what this is all about. The top of it gives you that view, and you don't have to shave the whole top off, but you have to take a lot of trees out. And in the proposal that they submitted, it's nice to get you down to ground level, you're looking through some trees. If you look between the trees, also see, oh, there's views out there, because the ground goes real steep all around it. So the proposed residence or lodge or country inn, the proposal keeps changing names as you go through it, is at the top, the very peak. Below it, going south, that'd be looking towards Fort Bragg. They get the same advantage when the trees are cut down. A beautiful view of all of southern Rappahannock County, almost clear over to Fort Bragg. Why do I say this? All the stuff about cutting down trees or whatever. Once the trees are cut down, you just pay a fine. You got the view, you got $1 million view, and you sell the place. These people that are asking for a change, I'm sure are very nice. They're professional developers. They design and then they sell. This sets a precedent for the whole county to have the same technique used on all of our hills. Not just one, all of them. And just start thinking what that does. And just because you leave a couple of trees around the place, and I'm sure that's what their intention, until they blow over, because you change the supporting structure of the forest, leave that tree up there with that sail area. As you know, our winds are pretty bad. They're going to come down. So you don't have to pay someone to come in and log it, or get somebody, gypsies to come in to hijack the lumber. That's just one issue. Another issue is they sent a letter saying that they anticipate $14,000 to $24,000 money coming to the county. Now, anybody have any idea how much you have to charge to get that amount of lodging tax at 4%? Their numbers. For $14,000 of lodging tax, they'll take $350,000 worth of revenue a year. That's their low end. Their high end of $24,000 coming to the county a year requires $600,000 a year coming in. Now, how are they going to get that? If you read the proposal, the yurts are for friends, family, and I guess a lot of paying guests, right? Because I don't think any of us would charge our families to stay in the yurt, or even our friends to stay in the yurt. Especially when, if this place is only open on weekends, the yurts are going to have to go from $700 a weekend to $1,500 a weekend. That's mathematics. That's just from working this out as to trying to figure out what are they saying and what does it really mean. The comments about the road have already been made. Woodward Road is beat up. There's no other word for it. I sort of like that. It slows the traffic down, okay? How much traffic do we get a day? 15 or 20 cars, maybe. I don't know where they got this 57 thing that's in the proposal. So if you have 8 guests plus a resident up there at the top of Redwood Mountain, you're going to have roughly 40 or 50 car trips a day. Why is that? Well, one trip is going in and out. Multiply that by 9. You've got 3 trips going in and out at least, because the people, there's no restaurant up there, or we want one, so the people have to leave to eat. If they want to hike on trails, there's not a single trail between Redwood Mountain and Sperryville. Not one. Not an access. If you go the other direction, about 2 miles, you get the Hazel River. There's no parking. If you like to hike on the Hazel River Trail, that's sort of nice. You can get your feet wet. You have, I think, 5 or 6 crossings of the river within the first mile. There is an option called Sand Run. Sand Run, you'll find the mountain goats at the bottom of it, because they find it too steep to climb. You're not going to have a lot of these people coming to do this.
I would just ask if you could conclude your comments, please, in the interest of fairness and time management.
Sure. Once you lose something, it's gone forever. You don't know what you've lost until it's gone. Once we let this precedent be set, it's going to be used over and over and over again. Not just by the people, not necessarily by the parents, but by everybody who sees this opportunity. I think this is more a trial balloon to see what people can get away with, and then it's going to really open up if they get away with it. And I think the proposal is full of so many flaws that it makes me doubt the sincerity of trying to tell the truth instead of trying to anticipate a question and give an answer they think that we will blindly accept without doing our homework. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I'm David Seidman in Piedmont District, again, 480 Woodward Road, right down the slope of Red Man's Mountain from the proposed project. I'm going to try to be very brief. You've heard, and I hope read, and I think will hear more, many reasons why the application should not be granted. Reasons like safety, environmental degradation, effects on property values, conflicts with the zoning code and the comprehensive plan, effects on wildlife, and above all, concern for the future of Rappahannock as the rural wonder of community and environment that it is now. I think it's clear that the applicants on the record have not satisfied their burden of proof, and further information is not likely to change that. We don't know much about the well and septic plans, but even assuming that those work out okay, that would just make their failure to meet the burden a little less egregious. Now, I think that doesn't really matter because this is an application for a special exception for a country inn. It's premised on a country inn. And I don't think that this application is for anything that might reasonably be called a country inn under the code, whatever term they want to use for it. Now, I'll try to be brief about this. I don't want to make a technical legal argument here. The code definition of hotel and motel use, which is not permissible in a conservation district, is functionally 6 or more lodging units being rented on a short-term basis. The definition of a country inn is a use which provides temporary lodging, meals, entertainment, recreation, etc., for up to 40 persons in a rural setting. That use is eligible to be considered for a special exception in a conservation district, although in this case, if it were considered that way, it should be denied. The application proposes a use that provides no meals, no entertainment, no record, and so far as I can tell, no etc. to its clients. To be sure, there are many ways clients can recreate or entertain themselves there, but the proposed facility is not providing them. You heard a list a few minutes ago of things which people can do at this so-called country inn. I can do those things slightly further down the hill on my little 5 acres. Nobody's providing them. It's just what happens when you're there in the world. You can do these things. So, the facility is not, so far as we can tell, providing anything beyond lodging, presumably because the applicants don't want to provide meals, recreation, and so forth. It's a voluntary choice, but it has consequences. So both the hotel use and the proposed use are providing temporary lodging to clients. What distinguishes one from the other for purposes of qualifying to be considered for an exception, for a special exception? What can it really be that if you took 8 lodging units from somewhere else, picked them up, and moved them to the top of Red Man Mountain, there would suddenly be a country inn, whereas before they weren't one? Pretty odd. It's the same thing functionally, same number of units and the rest. So, is the 8 units of the proposal a country inn merely because it's in a rural area? Well, and they're allowed in a country inn merely because they're in a rural area? And are they allowed in a rural area merely because they're a country inn? It's circular. Tells you nothing. So, it's entirely possible that the courts could propose something different, something that would distinguish what they propose to do from your basic, bare bones, temporary lodging. But that's not this application. If that's what they want to do, they can provide a different plan and a different application. But this one, I submit, is not a proper application for a country inn because it's not a country inn. It should not be before you because it's not, as anything, entitled even to be considered for a special exception. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'll work my way back, I promise.
Hi, my name is Thomas Esponti. I'm a longtime resident at 385 Woodward Road in the neighborhood where this applies. I respectfully, with sympathy, have to say it's a bad idea. And just a second, the things that Doug actually said as a neighbor informed about the environment of a mountainside or a mountaintop. It would be a tree disaster, and to put it soberly, posing both risk to property and persons in those structures. No structure, not the Epcot Center, not my house, not anyone's, is safe against tree damage, but proposing 8 or 9 structures and a road will open up vulnerability to all the trees. Some of them, if they were to fall, would create a damage field of 100 feet. They are huge trees on tops of mountains. At the top of my own mountain, pine trees fell with root balls from there to there, upending huge amounts of turf. The people would not be safe. The buildings would not be safe. The trees would be exposed to more wind damage rather than less. 8 open sites will mean major trees catch the wind like a sail. So with all due respect for a creative project, it poses enormous risk to persons and property, and we all face risk. My car, my house, and my barn. To mitigate that risk is a constant responsibility. Are the trees okay? Is there a branch over the shed? Is there a branch in the road after a really windy day and I'm driving back into town? People don't camp when it's really windy. Bears hide underground. You can't do it. It's absolutely folly to build 8 vulnerable structures on a mountainside. And when people do build that many buildings on a mountain, you can see them in the Smoky Mountains, in North Carolina. All of the trees have been removed, and it's folly, and it's an environmental disaster. This poses so many problems in the practical realm of trees and wind. And it was only 2 days ago, I picked up a branch near my cabin that blew off 50 feet, and it was from here to there. My cabin is fortunately okay. I'm not sure about geodesic domes. They would have to be made out of titanium. It is folly to build 8 structures, and in all due respect, the cost of the tree removal to keep person's property, etc. safe would be millions, and the tree loss would be devastating. I think that it's a very, very bad idea just for that reason alone, and adding all the others. I'm against this proposal. I think it's unwise and poses risks. I think that people camp better in tents and strong buildings, but not in a plan like this at all that goes against code and common sense. It's just not sensible at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Buzz Groshon. I live on Woodward Road. I've been here for about 9 years now, I think, since I retired. I like it out here, but that's another story altogether. I find it interesting that this proposal involves up to 9 residential units. Now, it's not a subdivision, but if it were a subdivision, it would require a 50-foot right-of-way on the front of it, which Woodward Road does not offer. Even if it were only 3 units, it would require a 50-foot right-of-way. VDOT has commented that they need a 30-foot wide entrance to this place. But that 30-foot wide entrance would be coming off of an 18-foot wide road. Something tells me that that just is not right. You know, this is not the place to be putting that sort of thing. That's the best I can say. You know, there is a project going in the county that's somewhat like a country inn with 3 units, I think, something like that, off of Route 231. Well, 231 gives you a nice right-of-way with paved road and all that sort of thing, which this does not. And they mentioned the place, what is it, the bed and breakfast place that rents out these things, and as I understand it, they require the units to be on a paved road, which this is not. It just seems like this is the wrong place for this sort of property. Anyway, that's my point.
Thank you. All right, second round. There we go.
Thank you. So I'm Daniel McKemlin, representing lot 3750D, the lower corner of which spans the Woodward Ash Street intersection. So right across from the stop sign at Ash Street is where the parcel begins. we have trail cams and lots of video of bears, including mother with 3 cubs and some bobcats. So let's see. So this parcel was purchased by my grandparents in 1969. So I have 55 years of memory to draw upon, to reflect upon it, and give you a sense of what I think we would be losing were the lodge to open. So to help give a sense of that, I'll tell you about myself and my 4 brothers, who were, most likely to have had our childhoods out there. And the 5 of us, plus my cousins, we were just all up and down the Woodard, all up and down the hills and hollows of Woodard Road, all up and down Ashby, getting, having our misadventures, getting the places we shouldn't have been, if I'm honest. But very frequently, we would go down Ashby till it's dead end, go left up to FT Valley Gas and Grocery, buy our cup of bubble gum and other 25 cent candy, make the trek back. So nothing special about what I've said so far. This is not unlike a childhood spent that you'd find anywhere in the country. But what I think is maybe unique to this setting is that we were going up and down miles of roadway where there are no sidewalks. There are no sidewalks, there are no street lights, and there's no need for them because we're safe. We're always safe. We never worried about our safety on these roads. And we're 10 years old and less, going up and down, miles and back. And this safety was derived from, very much from the low level of vehicular traffic. The people who would be driving on these roads, by and large, are people who live there, or their friends and family coming to see them. People in the area who are cognizant of this fact that there are people out on the roads by foot. This is where pedestrian traffic happens. And so we felt safe. Our parents weren't worried about us. And while my childhood is long ago now, I've seen generations of kids over the decades growing up very much the same way and enjoying it, the same sense of safety. Living right there at the intersection of House 10A recently, kids enjoying very much the life that we had. And I can say, even up until recently, this past Sunday, I was there walking through the intersection, going to visit some neighbors. And if there was a Bible here, I could swear on it. But I'm going down Woodard and coming around the corner, 2 little kids, really about this high, just chasing butterflies with big smiles. They're having the time of their life there. There was some other, in tow about 50 feet behind, but not worried about these kids. Within the same 30 minutes, walking through the intersection, I'm seeing a buck on Ashby. There's a rabbit scurrying up Woodard. There's there's a turkey just in the middle of the road. The wildlife, they didn't mind me. I didn't mind them. I went about my business. They went about theirs. Not worried about me. But they felt those animals were out there because they had the same sense of safety that we had up until now. And that's a great relationship that we have, this type of coexistence. I think this is, all this is going to go away. If that lodge would open, this is what we stand to lose. We would be arriving at, tranquility's end here. The sense of peace, safety that we have out there, the security, I think it's, my grandchildren would not get to enjoy it as I have, as my child has. This we're really talking about the end of this at this time. So I would, just in here, I would implore the codes not to go forward with this plan, to consider other options, for the commission here not to allow it to proceed. And with that, I just thank you for time and consideration.
Thank you. All right, let's go to the back and work our way. Yes, please.
Hello, I'm Robert Bannister. I live on Hungry Horse Lane, and the only access to our lane, where there's about 5 homes, is from Woodward Road. As Doug mentioned, the Hazel River Trail is at the end of Hungry Horse Lane, and as members of the Planning Commission, you should be aware, even if there weren't the codes proposal, that there already are adverse impacts on the neighbors on Woodward Road and Hungry Horse Lane from the number of hikers that access the Hazel River Trail. And we're glad that people enjoy it, but you should just be aware that it has adverse impacts. There are no trash receptacles. Many hikers just leave their trash in our driveway, our neighbors' driveways, by our mailboxes, where they park their cars, including their doggy bags. And we have to take it ourselves to Flatwood. There is no parking on Woodward Road. That's where the hikers need to park. And I've counted as many as 17 cars lined up on Woodward Road, and they're parked on either side of Woodward Road, so there's already a bottleneck there on days when there's a lot of hikers. So even if some of the guests for the proposed eco retreat were not driving in and out and just staying put there, with the foot traffic, there's adverse impacts. Maybe some of their guests would be trout fishermen, and every spring we have a problem with the trout fishermen that traverse our property to access the Hazel River, and we're trying to prevent erosion by having plantings there and building a wall, and they just trample it, and they literally step over the signs. We have a cable with no trespassing, and they literally step over it. So, you know, it's a small number of the people, but, you know, just be aware that inviting even more tourists to that small area where the ecosystem is kind of fragile, I don't think is helpful for the residents. And the volunteer master naturalists, it's kind of sad with all the additional traffic just to see all the, you know, the dead mammals and amphibians and whatnot on the road. There's no posted speed limits on the road. Woodward, there's no county sheriff that's monitoring the speed, so any additional traffic is a problem. The existing traffic is a problem. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Yes, sir.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Steph. Patrick Stark with 185 Woodward Road. I'm down on the south end of the road. Rob mentioned something about the hiking trails there, and that's what I wanted to just explain a little bit, expound on that a little bit. That when people come out here to hike Hazel River Trail, and I live right around the corner from the trailhead, I see all the cars parked out there, especially during COVID. We had cars parked on both sides of the road, which once you get off the gravel road, that's private property. And they don't pay attention. And when they are parked on both sides of the road, emergency services cannot get through. There's no way a fire truck or an emergency vehicle can get through there at all, period. And there's nobody there to monitor and maintain traffic flow. It's not my job. I've had many times that hikers come knocking on my door for directions back up to the park or back to their car. Don't know where the hell we're even hiking at. And sometimes I've taken it back up because of the time of the day or whatever, or whatever. But that's not what we're there for. And one other thing, it was written, and Mr. Coates mentioned it here a bit ago when he was talking about his proposal. He talked about how the beauty of the county and the peace and the calm and the beauty of it all. And I've been in my house now for next week will be 24 years. And before that was 5 years in Flint Hill. I'm still going to come here, okay? But it doesn't matter. And I look at all my neighbors sitting here, and I know a lot of them, and all of us have one thing in common. We're not trying to change the environment to suit ourselves. We move and we grow and we live and flood with what we have in our space, our yards and around us and stuff. That's the beauty of it. And that's what I like about this. It'd be one thing, I would support this if he was just going to be building a house for his own personal residence and that was it. But that's not it. He's turning this into a commercial venture that there's no guarantees that it'll still be there in 3 or 4 years down the road. And we have to turn around and pay for that. So clearly I'm not in support of this. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let's come back to this corner and then we'll finish up the road and then the back row.
Hi, I'm Bethany Bostick. I live 831 Woodward Road, Piedmont District. I think this is a fantastic idea, but not for Woodward Road, not for Sperryville. Honestly, I'm not even keen on it in Rappahannock. I can see the draw. I really can. It's beautiful on our road. The scenery is beautiful. But like a lot of my neighbors have already said, it's so problematic. Yes, the ecosystem. We're close to the national park. Whenever we do have a bunch of wildlife, I actually have fox kits right now in my front yard that if you bring a bunch more cars in, they're probably not going to survive. I know they're awesome. I know we're not supposed to know, but they're super cute if you haven't seen them, should rabbi. But yes, we have a ton of bear. And when bear and people interact, it's not good, especially if they're kind of in a structure that's not going to protect them. Do we already have a bear issue in Rappahannock? Yes. I'm married to the game warden. I hear those calls all the time. So I think you're definitely asking for trouble there. Is erosion going to be an issue? Most definitely. You take the trees, you take the roots, and your soil is going to start moving. I've lived in Madison in '95. I remember those landslides. I know people whose house it came through. Fire. If we have a fire, my concern is how long is it going to take the fire department to get back there? Because I'm sure you guys are familiar with Woodward Road. It is narrow, it's gravel, and it's windy. Like, I know at Christmas Eve, Santa Curtis doesn't want to go all the way back there on the fire truck. So, I mean, I just wonder, what would be the time? Like, have we thought about that? If something happens, somebody on vacation has a medical emergency, if one of those things catch on fire, have we thought about how long it's going to take our volunteers to get back there? Safety, a lot of people walk our road. I have elderly friends that come and park and walk every morning without fail. We have people who jog. I have 2 3-year-olds that I hope one day get to ride a bike on the road. If you bring in a lot of people who aren't familiar with that road, and maybe not even are familiar with gravel, you're going to have an issue. We have 2 hairpin turns to get out of Woodward Road that I probably, like my neighbors, have almost hit people multiple times. And yeah, it's probably going to be a headache. I too have had people park in my yard, standing in my yard, all of those things. And the president, like, if you do this, then you're opening a can of worms, and what keeps the next one from popping up somewhere else? Maybe besides you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Bethany. Yes, Tori.
Good evening, I'm Tony Van Acker from the, Stonewall Hawthorne District. And I'm a foreigner to you guys because I don't live on Woodward Road, I live out in Castleton. And I think the proposal that the coach put forth seems to be very well thought out, and it looks like a very interesting topic. I'm not sure it's a good fit for the area that's being proposed, but I can just think of many 25-acre properties in the county where someone would like to make a quick buck and would put down a bunch of geodesic domes and try to make a living. I think the previous speakers have spoken eloquently about some of the problems and the risks, and I'd just like to emphasize a couple of them since I went through a house building project about a decade ago on my property in Castleton. And I tell you that if you start cutting through trees to do construction, there's going to be a lot of cutting done when you have to put in all the underground septic lines, the water lines, and the power lines. Trees are going to be cut, roads are going to have to be built, parking lots are going to have to be built, and all those will have detrimental effect on the trees, and you're going to have a lot of tree fall. Maybe not in year 1, but certainly year 3, 4, or 5. I personally carry a chainsaw in my car on windy days and rainy days because I know that I sometimes cannot get out of my road without a chainsaw on those days. I think the erosion issue is a concern. I know that when I build my house and you start disturbing the soil, we really get some gully washes here, 3 inches an hour sometimes. And when you get rainfall like that, you're going to see mud coming down like you see out in California during some of those epic storms. I also am concerned about fire risk. 8 weeks ago, it was mentioned, we had fires here in the county. I had one on my property. I was going to bed at 11 p.m. and the neighbor said, hey, you got a fire in your property. And apparently when we did the back calculations and everything, we think it was a cigarette thrown out of a car. Now, I wonder whether the coats have thought about, or the conditions for acceptance, whether they think about how to address fire risk. Will there be fire pits? Will there be open grills? Will there be campfires allowed? That needs to be addressed. Lighting. The restriction on lighting is if it's greater than 60 watts or LED equivalent, you put it face down. Well, the truth be told, 60 watts is not the answer. It's really 800 lumens, and the color should be 2700K or less. But even so, when you're perched on top of the hill, and if the trees are cut, then you're going to see those lights down below, and some of the neighbors may not be too happy about that. I'm also would be concerned for, once, if this is permitted, then these temporary units, what would stop the owner from turning these into long-term rental units? Unless there was some prohibition against that. And lastly of all, there was some mention of ADA compliance in their proposal. I don't know whether that's something that's required of country inns or not, and whether that's something that's going to be provided for each one of the geodesic domes. But on a hillside like that, I imagine it'd be pretty hard to implement.
Thanks, John.
I'm Jeb Wofford. I live at 651 Woodward Road, about quarter mile, half mile from the proposed development. My wife and I sent an email to you all, so hopefully you got a chance to look at that. That articulated a lot of the details in terms of our concerns with this proposal. So I'm not going to rehash those. I do want to express, though, and it came up at least once, that for me the concern is, and I don't know where it fits in the zoning regulations, is the loss of our community and our neighborhood out there, where there's not many of us, a lot of us are here. We're widely dispersed, but we all know each other. On my little section of Woodward Road, which I kind of count from the development to Estes Mill, with some rough calculations, I think when this development's in full operation, it will come close to doubling the population in my neighborhood with tourists, with people that have no investment, that people could probably care less about the other folks that are living out there. Right now, we all know each other. Every car that goes by on that road, with few exceptions, I look out and I know who it is. And I like that. And it's the same for my neighbors, I'm sure. Functionally, this feels to be like plopping 8 VRBOs at the end of our road. And I can't figure out why anyone would want that and who benefits from that other than the folks who are renting the units out. I respectfully ask that you recommend denial of the proposal, and again, see that email for much more extensive list of concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks,
Hi, I'm Lisa Jones. I'm in the Piedmont District. I am an adjacent landowner but I do not live myself on Woodward Road. I think I greet everybody here. I'm 61 years old and I've lived here my whole life. As my parents, I'm my grandparents. So for whatever that matters. I don't want to rehash anything that's already been said, except for a couple of things. One is this is a special exception, and I hope that we don't have to fight this for every single lot that we have going forward. But there's no reason to grant this because it doesn't benefit the community. And I also want to say that there's been a lot of statements made about the quality of the road and whether or not there's food service, so that does it qualify for an inn. I want to say that you can also get the sense that the people who do live on Woodward Road like Woodward Road as a gravel road the way it is now. We are not asking for a huge upgrade of the road, so be careful what you ask for. We are not asking for this to put in a restaurant, a full service restaurant, because someone says, oh, you know what we'll do? To keep the road traffic down, we'll put food
service in there. I don't think that is what we're going for here. So I just want to say that this is less of a country inn than it is a trailer park, and that if things were to go south on this, it doesn't have extenuating value to the county. The tax revenue that's touted it costs over $16,000 a year for one kid in Rappahannock in school. Again, I've said it before, you can't object too much to the tree cutting, because if it's forestry, guess what you do with the forest? You get to cut the trees. So but however, if it's forestry and you cut the trees and they grow back and it's in agriculture, it doesn't use services. It doesn't send people to school. It doesn't have, I'm also a driver for the rescue squad, Sperryville Rescue Squad. It doesn't have people, emergency services. It doesn't generate trash, doesn't have people picking up stuff off the road, and it doesn't have road wear. And so there's no services generated by these areas. And so all taxes collected are dropped to the bottom line. And so I just want to say that don't get hung up on what the tax benefits are. The only other thing I wanted to mention is if you look at this, this is very sprawling. They're calling this a country inn, but this is not Glen Gordon, this is not Mount Vernon, it's not Belmead, it's not an existing area with a finite footprint. This is a big, sprawling, multi-acre footprint, which really does not fall into a country inn. It's not an existing structure. You're talking about all new construction and then labeling it ye old country inn. It simply is not that. And then the other thing is, I did look at the application. There's not one mention of the word dog or pet. I know there's this quiet time, etc. But if you get 8 dogs in sight or barking or distance of each other, it's very hard to enforce quiet hours. Let's just face it. If you get 8 kids within barking distance of each other, it can be hard to enforce quiet hours. And so it's really nice to see the community here, and I don't mean any offense to you, but I also think that one thing that the community here should think about, we've all talked about how much we like it, we've all talked about how much we want to maintain Rappahannock's rural character, and everyone here who's saying this should think about this in their own estate planning, and what they plan to do, and what they plan to see that this goes forward, because you have a responsibility to the future. That's all. Thanks.
My name is Christine Hoffman. I live at 704 Woodward Road, Piedmont. I've been in this county since 1985. When I was part of Sperryville Rescue Squad, part of Company Blindness Rescue and Fire. So I go way back. I walk Sperryville Road. I don't walk as good as I used to, but I still walk this road with my 4th dog now. She does not use a leash. She walks on that road. She hears a car coming. She sits down and trains her to listen. I love my rural area. I have bears, like John said. We all have the bears. We love the bears. I just can't imagine this coming to why I came out to this county. So I'm not going to repeat. I know most of these neighbors here, or I've passed them on the road many a times. They probably have seen me walk, but I really wish you would not consider this proposal. Thank you.
Yes. You'll be next, Ted.
Bob Tracton, Piedmont District. I also live on Woodward Road. I also have concerns about 9 dwelling units on the proposed agriculture and conservation zone site that allows 1 dwelling unit by right. 8 of these will be rented to tourists, and with that comes extra traffic on the narrow roads. There are, on the site plan they provided, there's 10 parking spaces for the proposed plan. Can guests arrive in 2 vehicles? Possibly. What about housekeeper, maintenance, laundry delivery, trash disposal? All this adds up to more traffic on the road. I welcome the owners to join the community, build their home that they have a right to do. In my opinion, the 8 additional tourist dwellings on the property are not appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I have two concerns. I have friends on Woodward Road. I don't live on Woodward Road, but
I'd ask everybody to use the microphone, please.
Oh.
It makes, when you go to transcribe the minutes, it saves
oh,
us.
okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Does this gentleman have a name?
Yes, your name and district, please.
Ted Goshorn. I live in Piedmont District, but the far side,
Thank
in
you.
the cheap seats. Woodward Road, my good friend that lives on Woodward Road, I go visit quite frequently. And I notice sometimes it's nice and smooth and easy to drive up there. But so many times it's so washboarded from a high volume of traffic and a little bit of neglect over several months from VDOT. VDOT can't be out there every day. It gets rough. I can't hardly climb the hill with a two-wheel drive. I have to push the button. The other thing that concerns me is knowing a little bit about geology. We had a pretty good shaking going on here in 2011. We don't know what's come loose. It scares me where I live because I live on a mountain on the side of it. And with heavy rain, tree removal, tree roots hold a lot of stuff in. I'm afraid some things might come tumbling down. You never know, but it's a good possibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. There's no one else in the back, Karen? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead. Thank you.
Carolyn Butler, and I live 100 feet off Woodward Road. And we have lived in that area of Sperryville for 8 generations. So this is my home, and igloos are not good for this area. It doesn't fit in with the whole county. It's not what we're about. And you all, this is a special exception, so you have the right to say, this does not fit. And we should not allow any mountain tops to be scraped off. Just look at Jenkins Mountain. Look at what that looks like. It looks like Linden, Virginia. We don't want any more of that. So please, please, you've got the right to say no. Please do.
Thanks, Carolyn. All right, you're up, Karen.
My name is Karen Hunt and I live in Jackson District. And I'll just give you an ad hoc comment about bears. When I through hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2001, we were in Smoky Mountain National Park. And there were rangers there that had named a bear Toyota Tercel because it had learned to open hatchbacks, to pull out coolers. Think about that. It can open a car. And it was very selective as to that make and model. Good evening. This application raises concerns on a number of levels. The property around it is zoned agricultural and conservation, which has a minimum 25 acre per dwelling unit requirement. Yet the applicant is requesting a special exception for a high intensity commercial use to construct 8 short-term rental units and a 4-bedroom home with a detached garage, all on one 25 acre lot. As noted in our zoning ordinance, a special permit or special exception will only be granted if the applicant can satisfy the requirements of Article 6. And as noted in both the ordinance and the staff report, the burden is on the applicant to satisfy the requirements. I do not see any situation in which imposed conditions and restrictions on the proposed intensity in this location would make it compatible with by right uses in the agricultural conservation districts, nor do I see how it is possible to properly mitigate its impact on neighboring properties. The property is an environmentally sensitive area with steep slopes. By the applicant's own admission, and I quote, the topography rises over 150 feet from the existing driveway entrance to the proposed site into the heavily wooded hillside. And there is a significant elevation differential between Woodward Road and the top of the property, end quote. There is one well proposed, projected to serve the maximum of 24 people, in addition to a hot tub and an additional bathroom with shower for use by the guests. I am still reviewing the septic plan and soil tests details, but a cursory look raises some concerns regarding slope, soil depth, and bedrock depth. As pretty much anyone who's lived around here for any length of time knows, this area of the county is known for rock. And without enough depth of good soil before reaching rock, with impervious hardpan or other perk issues, a septic system will not work correctly. You will see lights on the mountain regardless of whether they're downshielded or not. Then there's Woodward Road, which has already been the subject of much previous discussion, where residents and others have noted it is a narrow gravel road, barely 16 feet wide and one lane in some parts, with no shoulder, has bottlenecks at both ends, and is a challenge for vehicles of all sorts, including emergency vehicles and farm equipment. Widening the existing driveway entrance on Woodward Road does not in any way address the impacts to and existing safety concerns of increased traffic on that road from 9 proposed dwellings. Nor does proposing a turnaround loop at the top of the property address adequate emergency response issues. This special exception application does not comport with our comprehensive plan, despite assertions to the contrary, nor is it light in impact or consistent with the core values of Rappahannock County. It is disingenuous to suggest that the requested construction of 8 short-term rental dwellings and a 4-bedroom residence, which is akin to less than a 2.8-acre subdivision request. It's disingenuous to suggest that that is somehow a reasonable use when compared to, as the applicant contends, a multi-room hotel-like building with a large footprint and increased tree clearing, an event venue, an amenity-intensive resort, or a weekend party destination at the same location. It reminds me of the old saying, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. I would suggest that the applicant's stated original vision of building a standalone cabin, currently proposed as a 4-bedroom house with detached garage, for solely family use is what would be best suited for the neighbors, the local community, and the county if their intent is to develop the property. This application is problematic for a whole host of reasons and would set a very detrimental and concerning precedent for the immediate Sperryville community and the county as a whole if it were to be approved. I respectfully urge the Planning Commission to recommend denial. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Yes.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Lee, and I live in 597 Woodward Road. I've been there about 12 years now, and I've been down Sperryville for another 20 years, so it's been a while. And I'd like to say that I live on one of the narrowest pieces of the road that you can imagine. And if you go off of it, you'll be going in a ditch, sincerely. So when I heard this, I thought whether they had actually gone down the road, because it's just so impossible. So I want to thank them for the thinking of the good stuff that you can do for us. And we want to invite you to the county and invite you to join us and do all kinds of wonderful things, even if it's not in this particular way. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Monica. Yes, that's appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Anyone else? Right, if there is no one else that wishes to speak, in light of not having advertisement in the paper, I think 1 week earlier, through no fault of anyone's except that it didn't get published, and some additional documents that were just posted to BoardDocs today, and in light of the complexity of this application, I'm going to recess this public hearing until the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting here at the courthouse on June 17th, 2024. So I'm recessing the public hearing. I know this is a different process than what most people interact with on their daily basis. So just to explain it to you, in light of the complexity of this application and a shortened notice window, because the paper missed the first advertisement, I want to extend the time that citizens have to speak by allowing an additional public hearing time at the next regularly scheduled planning commission, because I do believe that this is a very complex application and a developing application in light of documents we just received today. And I do think that is a fair way to move forward. I would also suggest, we've been in this meeting now until 8:30, so let's take a brief 5-minute break, and then I'll come back and discuss this application. Does that sound agreeable to everyone? All right, let's stretch and we'll reconvene in 5. If everyone is in a good order, then let's go ahead and I think, did the applicant have some additional comments, or would the commissioners like to make some comments from the hearing?
So are we going to proceed, or?
I think if you all are of mind not to proceed tonight, I mean, you can make a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chairman, okay, let's follow the things that you laid out just now. So, did you ask the applicant, do you have any fellow comments at this moment?
Yeah, I mean, there are comments that we can offer, Madam Chair. I mean, we can reserve those until the next meeting if it's the commission's intent to adjourn tonight, but I'll also be glad to respond to some of the comments that were made. It's whatever the commission prefers to, how you prefer.
So this part, I want to jump right on top of this. So this notion of postponing this because of an advertisement and also additional information was submitted. And that was I think a surprise to everybody on the commission when you spoke that. Now, I understand in the discussion that maybe one time was missing the advertisement, but the advertisements that were done are legal and fulfills the requirement of the state code. So if that is true, then we pass a hurdle on meeting the requirements of advertising. So that kind of throws out the need up front. Now, if additional information was submitted today, I haven't seen it. I've seen some photographs, but I haven't seen any other things that were submitted to the board. Now, I did see where today on the email, where a very, very long email was submitted by an attorney apparently in the county who did not disclose representation of anybody here, the applicant or the public here. And that email was rebuffed and detailed in large completion, which was excellent, by the county administrator. And it left no question about the application process and the ordinance. For me, when I read that, what was presented by the county administrator on all these gray areas, I was very happy. And we have 20, 30 people here tonight, and they came out. So we're asking them all to come out next month again and sit and do this. So everybody loses a month. And I remember one time many years ago, I was in a settlement with Jim Fletcher over in the basement clerk's office, and 4 or 5 people came in an hour late. And he calculated how many people was in the room, how much they were worth per hour, and what the loss of economic time was. So I think everybody has a value per hour here, and this is their evening time, their recreational time, and I'm willing to hear whatever the applicant has to say and have a discussion, but I don't think anybody's been shortchanged here tonight, and I don't see any
thing that's been presented that's gonna change anything till next month. Now, if you, Madam Chairman, if you have something, you know, that you have not given us in your pocket that you want to share with us, please do. But I'm ready to go ahead and proceed with this and hopefully wrap it up with a vote tonight.
Madam Chair, I'm in agreement with Mr. Henry. Also, in terms of the two notices, there was the published notice and there was also a second electronic notice. So I think that we're probably in compliance with the state code.
Okay, well, I do apologize to my fellow commissioners. I think, and if I was out of line, I apologize. I felt and I still feel the complexity of this application warrants multiple rounds of discussion and public input. But if it's not the will of the commission to handle it that way, then I'm sort of at a loss for how to proceed, except maybe we should take a vote on it.
Sure.
Well, I would just add that I believe if we're going to do that, then you might need to reverse the position of keeping the public hearing open. I'm not sure how that relates.
Yes, I do think we have, in order to take action, I have to declare the public hearing closed.
Declare it closed.
Which I do apologize, and trying to keep something neat and open apparently is not going to work out. And so I would just say that at this time, I will have to reverse my previous statement that the public hearing is being kept open to reconvene in June. And at this time, I will go ahead and, if there's no additional comment, I will go ahead and close the public meeting so that the commission might take action. Thank you.
Were you going to give them an opportunity to go after we discuss?
Is that the pleasure of the commission?
I suggest if we have questions, we can ask them. I personally don't feel the need to hear more presentation about this. But I think it's reasonable if we have questions, we can ask them.
So since I kicked the can, I might as well kick it again, and I'll start off with. Okay. I'll ask some questions then. Is that okay, Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many months a year, please don't answer the question. You'll step up to the microphone.
Sure, sure.
How many months a year y'all plan on operating? Year round or 9 months what? Year round?
Year round.
These units that you're buying, what's the lifespan on them?
They're maintained properly, they can last 20 years.
Okay. So if y'all start this and for whatever reason it ends, what's going to happen to these units?
Yeah, so the yurts are made so that, sorry, I'll call them domes, that's what we're calling them. But they are made so that you can take them down. And that was part of the beauty of deciding on doing a very light footprint deck to put them on top of, is so that those can also be removed and then the land can be restored back to its
So
original
y'all can,
condition.
if y'all cease operations, you can take them down, dispose of them,
and
sell them,
take
take
them-
them to the dump,
yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
Okay. So in your process here that you're planning, if you disturb over 10,000 square feet of earth at any one time, you have to do a DEQ permit from land disturbance. Are y'all trying to get around this by doing small sections at a time, or you're going to do all the work at one time, do a DEQ environmental impact plan, have the engineering done and follow that? Or have you thought that far down the road?
I'd say we've had preliminary conversations with our civil engineer about it, which is Lee Baines from Hinchy Baines. We're not trying to necessarily get around anything, but our understanding has been that if the land disturbance is less than 1 acre, that the DEQ review process is not required. So we're not trying to limit anything. Our land disturbance is less than 1 acre, but it's not necessarily to avoid that. But he has brought that up to us. But we understood that the threshold was 1 acre.
I thought it was 10,000 square feet. Rental rates, the fantastic amount of tax you propose, so what's your average rental rate of units?
I mean, it's too early to be seen. Our hope is to keep it at, a rate that's very different than maybe some of the other B&Bs in the county, lower overall, given the more limited sort of amenities and whatnot. But, I think it'll range between probably 150 a night to 250 a night.
I guess you're gonna maintain a web presence, or you're gonna do this through Airbnb or VRB, or how y'all gonna advertise?
Mainly through our own direct web presence. Minimizing the amount of bookings we get through Airbnb is preferred. We may have it on there for a period of time, but the goal would be to transition it to our own website and direct booking.
So looking at the site plan here, you have several drain field locations. Do you anticipate a separate drain field in each one of those locations?
No, so we've identified, and it'd be nice if it was back up on the screen, but if not, that's okay. We've identified really the two locations that it would be designated for the domes themselves. And then of course we would need a little bit of area for the residents as well. So the area that would be required for the domes would be about 8,000 square feet. And then an additional 5,000 for the residents. So if you look at all of that together, it's less than 1% of the total area.
So looking at the staff report, I was a little bit confused there in terms of the drain fields in that. Did the health department do a courtesy walkover for you, or did you at the locations give you comment, or did y'all have a soil scientist come in?
We did both. So we had a soil scientist come in, do digging, investigate what the soil conditions were at various locations on the property. And then we had a soil engineer work through the septic preliminary design with us, which we submitted to the health department to review. And that's what they based their comments off of.
So when we sometimes do Airbnbs on properties, there's road standards that we have to follow. So Michelle, does these interior roads, do they have to follow standards? What was it, type 2 roads? Are they exempt from that?
Yes.
Okay. That's all the questions I have at this time.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, if you look at the comprehensive plan, I want to thank you for Principle 9. So it says to encourage citizen involvement in the planning process. That certainly was accomplished. Do you currently have power to the property?
We do, yes.
Is it above ground?
Yes.
Which one are you planning on building first, or the home, or the yurts, or the domes?
We haven't determined exact sequencing yet, but we definitely plan to be on the property when anything is being constructed, such that we can oversee what's happening. We have a couple of different plans and ideas for how to be more local while construction is underway before our permanent residence is finished.
And I read your application, it was a very detailed application, but it said, and I may be wrong, I should correct me, Sunday to Saturday would be the rental?
I guess that was our probably indirect way of saying it's open 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
Yeah.
So in theory, how long can you rent that? If I was to come and I want to rent for a week, can I rent for a week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I rent for 2 weeks?
Yes.
2 months?
I
don't think people will want to come out that long, but
Well, no,
yeah.
I mean, we can look
I think
at
I guess it's possible.
COVID happens, I won the lottery, I'm gonna rent the entire time for a year. Can I do it?
no. We don't want it to be a permanent residence for people. This is a short-term residence.
What would be that delineation? I mean, you said 2 months, 3 months, 4 months?
Well, I would say it's not something we've really contemplated, but if there was feedback from the commission on a maximum time limitation, I think it's a question we hadn't really considered, honestly.
So when I look at this, I look at it as, I don't like to impose too many rules. I believe people should have the freedom to kind of do what they want. That said, by
to me, that's non-properties. And that, to me, turns into a commercial business, and this is conservation, this is agriculture, zone that. And I'm telling you, I'll be honest, right now I just have a real hard time getting behind it, based on that.
I have some basic questions about density, Michelle. I don't understand, my understanding of a dwelling is that if it has, you know, the rudimentary definition is it has a bathroom and a kitchen, it's a dwelling. So if you're building a house for your residence, that's your dwelling. And if you're building 8 other structures that have a bathroom and a kitchen, you can call it a kitchenette, but when it comes to planning and zoning, we go by the definitions in our ordinance, and if it's not defined in our definitions in the ordinance, then you look it up in the dictionary. And a kitchenette means a little kitchen. So you can call it a kitchenette, but it's still a kitchen. And so to me, I think you have a density issue before you have anything else. I don't see how this intensity of use could be permitted, given that it so highly exceeds the density for agriculture and conservation zoning. I think that's highly improper. In addition to that, there were a lot of good points brought up by folks this evening. I think the road is also a big problem. I saw you reference to 12-foot wide road. I know you're dedicated to taking down as few trees as possible, and it sounds like a good idea. But in practicality, when you have, at the end of the day, probably 20 people on your property, either your employees or your guests, Lisa Jones drives for the Sperryville Rescue Squad. That's not going to be a very good road if something should happen up there and you need emergency services. There has to be room for an ambulance or a fire truck to operate. And one of the things that I would like for us to take a closer look at is whether that road could be served by fire services, because I think you're going to have a problem with the way you have it laid out. My other notes, the slope, and I know that in your application you stated folks would be directed via FT Valley Road. I was not directed via FT Valley Road when I followed the pin that you sent to the commissioners. I was directed via Woodward Road past Estes Mill, which is a very narrow, very steep road. And as long as I've lived in this county, and we first moved here in 1985, I hold my breath and hope and pray that I don't meet someone coming the other way when I walk that road. And then as I climbed up Woodward Road on the dirt road part, on that slope on the approach to your driveway, and then the slope of your driveway will also be a highly a brutal climb of the trajectory. I think you will have problems with erosion. I think you will have problems with your road quality. I fail to see how a 30-foot commercial entrance will adversely impact your neighboring property owners, that some of them should have it right in their line of sight. I worry about the erosion from both your driveway and then going out onto that steep slope on Woodward Road, about it washing into streams, which we are dedicated in our comprehensive plan to protecting. I worry about there's ponds in the area and they could be adversely affected by it. We have a dedication in our comprehensive plan and our goals and principles to protecting our slopes and ridges and crests in this county. And I think that this application is contrary to the comprehensive plan in many of those respects, as shown by folks this evening. I know that you detailed in your application that the setbacks will mitigate the impact to your neighbors. However, I feel the elevation of your property, it's not something I feel, something I know, cancels out a lot of that distance because it's going to be up. It's not how far away. It's up where you can see it. It's up where noise will travel. We know this from other applications in the county, how noise travels through the valleys of the county. And I have issues with that. I do believe the neighbors are correct that this will impinge on their ability to enjoy their own properties peacefully and the values of those properties with more commercial development in the area. In addition to the fire and rescue issues for transportation, the increased traffic count on the road from the 8 units plus the help in yourselves there every day. You would normally be the only inhabitants, but say you've got your 8 sites, you could have as many as 2 cars per site, 2 or 3 outings to town a day. You're looking at 60 to 80 trips to town and back every day, which is a huge impact on the intensity of the road. And it will impact the road quality and the quality of the lives of people living on that road. A large part of living on a road like Woodward Road is that the folks that live there know how to drive it. And unfortunately, the folks coming in from outside the county won't have that advantage. And it can create a nuisance and a danger for the people that are your neighbors. The noise and light is another large consideration, and I think that I've covered with the elevation. I hadn't really thought about the implications to livestock and also to wildlife, but I can see that there would be negative impacts, especially with the bear population. You see that in North Carolina in areas where the bears have become a real nuisance, and that would be a shame if that kind of thing was to evolve in Sperryville. And I'll welcome other comments by other commissioners.
Well, I will go. I applaud the creativity and the entrepreneurship of the application, but I think it suffers from many irreconcilable fatal flaws. The first is these are dwelling units. There's 9, and you could have 1 residential and 1 accessory, as best I can tell, according to the code. Maybe that's subject to some debate, but this doesn't fit neatly into many definitions, but clearly these are dwelling units, and you're limited in the number of those that you can have in the density. To get beyond that, I think the next tier of really fatal flaws is the safety and both of the fire, traffic, pedestrian, road coming and going. Then you can get into the water and runoff and lights, and I think you can keep going down the list of perhaps less critical, less clear, but equally problematic attributes of this site. So to me, it's a pretty straightforward recommendation.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay, for me, the real issue here is the traffic on Woodward Road. The additional traffic that will be added to Woodward Road. We have just recently went through an ordeal with this 50-foot right-of-way. Nowhere on Woodward Road, Ashby Road, or Estersville Road is not a 50-foot right-of-way. So it's a showstopper for me. Now, the reason being, a native of this county has had to spend thousands of dollars to try to get permission to have 3 houses built on this property and to come out on the Woodward Road. It was denied because of the 50-foot right-of-way. Also, the county had to spend something under $5,000 to get legal service fee to support the turning by BZA to turn over a ruling or decision that the zoning administrator and the county administrator and the county attorney had rendered. So they overturned it. I do not want to see anything that can possibly cost this county any more tax dollars to be wasted in that kind of foolishness as far as I'm concerned. I don't necessarily say that I agree with that decision, but they made it, and we got to stick by it. So I cannot support this application. Nothing against you, but I think I've heard y'all explain my reason for not being able to support you.
You're wanting to build in a conservation district. The designation indicates that the slopes are very steep and that erosion is entirely possible. It seems like a really poor choice for a residence and then the additional housing units. I mean, the number of trees, it's really beautiful property, but the number of trees you're going to have to clear it's going to change the nature of the property itself, as well as the scenic values of all your neighboring properties. So, in looking at your application, I just don't think you meet the general standards. I think that the proposed use will result in unsafe conditions in relation to community facilities existing or planned as relates to adequate police and fire protection, and danger of congestion in travel as testified to by all your neighbors, and the rescue services. I also think it will, the comprehensive plan really discourages ridgeline development, and this is a major ridgeline development. Lights from your property will be seen throughout the county. We've already done that in parts, and I don't know how this got by to begin with, but I don't see any reason to replicate those. The proposed use will cause an undue impact on scenic qualities of the immediate area. I think that's another way in which your application just doesn't meet the standards in the code. And I'm not sold on the idea that this is a country inn by any stretch of the imagination. And then further, I'm not sure country inn should be in a conservation district. So for all of those reasons, I think the permit should be denied.
Have you all stayed on the property overnight?
Not overnight. We were planning to go out there last weekend, but they rented it. But we spent a lot of time out there.
Have you been there in the dead of winter?
Yes.
With snow?
Dusting.
That's a totally different world when there's actually snow. The garage, is that just a garage, or is that a carriage house with an apartment above it, or what's your plans for the garage?
Yeah, you just hit on a really good point, snow. So we plan to have a garage large enough to hold our vehicles, but also some of the equipment that we would need to maintain the property and then clear the roads when needed.
But no loft space? Or
no.
Finished loft space? What is the common building for?
Yeah, so this was one of the spaces that we knew we would need to provide to be able to have linens and storage, to be able to have all the supplies that we need. And so that's really just a spot for us to be able to keep everything that would help keep the site running, and then the actual units themselves.
There'll be a washer and dryer in there?
Yes.
So that's going to be another source of water use?
Yes, that was accounted for in our septic plan as well.
I was going to go on about the traffic and the lights, and maybe the impact the water issues may have on neighboring properties, when there's no well up there, so we have no idea what it'll produce, how it'll adversely affect the neighboring properties, and those drain fields are massive, and they seem to be condensed. I don't understand that report at all. I'd really like someone to explain to me how that can get crammed in such a small space. It seems like other people have a hard time getting a 3-bedroom per. I just find that amazing.
I think
On
we
top
got
of that
really
number.
lucky.
I guess. But Ms. Flowers got me concerned about bears of all things, and I wasn't even thinking about it. But those tents, I mean, I can really see how those could be a problem. The air is getting in, you got people cooking in there, they're not airtight, so you're gonna have aromas and smells that are gonna attract these critters in. And I think once they tear into one of those things, that might be it for the whole neighborhood. You know, I feel like a weirdo thinking that bears are a problem, but I never thought of it that way before until tonight. But I think among all the other issues people have brought up, I think changing the nature of the wildlife behaviors there is a serious issue that we need to take into consideration as well. And the only other question I had is mostly for Michelle or maybe Mr. Henry, is I don't understand how we can circle that property and put a C in the middle and have any part of that in A. How is any of that agriculture? Yeah. Is that something we need to look at again? I mean, not just this particular property, it is what it is, but
We do it by slope,
that's what it is, slope.
most of the time.
Also, the woods is considered falls under agriculture as well.
I did want to bring out too, and it took me a minute to locate it, Principle 1, Policy 1, promote and protect agriculture as the primary use of land in rural areas and inform the public of the benefits of this policy. I think when you have a parcel that is partially zoned agricultural, that is an important policy to bear in mind, is that we really should only be converting agricultural land for other uses out of necessity, when it can't be done somewhere else.
I'd like to compliment you all on your presentation. I appreciate the quality of your site plan that you submitted. I think you did a good site plan for the public and for the board to look at. Thank you for the materials on the structures themselves. It was good. It was a good presentation, and it provided a lot of information that helped move this thing forward. I've been on the planning commission a long time, and I often refer back to things that we've done before. And I think I kind of guess where this is headed to tonight. And about 20 years ago, we had an applicant come in to do a Montessori school up on Bearwallow Road behind Flint Hill. And there was a public outpouring greater than this at that meeting. And nobody wanted it for a lot of the same reasons that we're talking about here. Traffic, the buildings, people, everything. It was going to change their community. And we turned it down, and we said to them, you know, you have a good idea, but you got a wrong location. And fortunately, they had a contract on the property, and so they walked away from it. It came down to 522 next to Flint Hill, bought a building, put a Montessori school in, and been very successful there for the length of time, 15, 20 years. So, having said all this, does anybody else have any comments?
You just reminded me, Al, and I did want to also compliment you on your presentation. It was very thorough and put together very well. I did want to ask Michelle, the country inns we do have in the county, they're Glen Gordon, correct, and Blue Rock, are those the only two that we have?
I would have to double check our records.
But the tendency for those is to have them on 2-lane or 4-lane highways. They're not located on dirt roads. Anyway, you just reminded me. Thank you, Al.
So, does anybody want to make a motion? If not, I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
You make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, you do it.
That based on everything that's been presented tonight as it is, that this request is denied.
Mr. Sis, can I add something to your motion?
Sure.
Under the applicable Rappahannock County sections that was mentioned in our packet tonight, 17047C, the final sentence says, make it compatible with the by right uses in the zoning district. The proposed use, I do not believe, is compatible with the by right uses in this section. And also on principle 7, the environmental quality of the rural character does not become adversely affected. And I think the environmental quality of the rural character will be adversely affected here. And finally, it will affect the residential neighborhood that the neighbors live in. So,
Okay. So we have a motion, and we have a second with a request for a friendly amendment. Is that all right with you, Mr. Sis?
Yes, ma'am, that's fine.
I guess I would like to offer another friendly amendment.
That's the way it goes sometimes.
That there's a finding that 9 dwelling units is inconsistent with the density requirements for ag and conservation zoning. And I think that, to me, is a critical one. And I would also suggest that we cite the references that were previously cited about the general standards with respect to water and safety. So, you know, I don't know that we need to identify all of the reasons that this isn't something we want to support, but if we're going to start articulating them, I think we should either articulate them all or articulate none of them. So consider it a friendly amendment request.
How are you so inclined?
not my motion.
How are you so inclined?
That's fine. Now I'll defer to the experience here on
I would just say, if we're having discussion on it, the density to me is a critical part of this application that I think is fatal to the application.
Well, I have to say this. I don't think we would have this density stated here unless it had been thoroughly reviewed by the county staff. So I don't think we need to go with the density. I think we have enough other issues here in terms of environmental and neighborhoods, things that were quoted. Stay away from the density issue, but I don't think it would be presented tonight if it wasn't grounds to stand on for the density that was stated.
Well, the density discussion spoke to the question about lodging units in the country inn, and it meets the not more than 20. That was discussed, but I've seen no discussion of the basic question about how many dwelling units you can have on a single parcel, or whether these are in fact dwelling units to be used in this configuration as a lodging unit. I've seen no discussion of that, and to me that is a central question.
I mean, my concern is that if it's all in use as a country inn, and then you have these 8 igloos, geodesic dome structures on the hillside, what is the county's recourse? And will they become long-term dwelling units? And then you really have a serious density issue.
Well, we've already heard that they have a use, that they can be lived in for a long time. They're configured for 20 years of potential use. Maybe it's not their intention to have them permanently resided in, but that's not the definition. The definition says they're built for, with the accommodations for that to be a permanent residence. They're residences. They may be seasonal residents, but they're permanent if they have a life of 20 years. To me, I think this could be a matter for further legal review, but to me, this is the clearest check, and I think it's a matter of 9 dwelling units, each of which is being proposed in combination to be configured as a country inn. I don't think there's any inherent inconsistency in this. I think these definitions can complement one another, but we have a density requirement for dwelling units, and this violates it, in my view.
Well, I think we have 100% grounds to come us down on the issues of the environment, safety, everything that we cited. So when you cross over into the density field, you're basically saying that this application should never have been submitted, and the staff and the zoning department was incorrect in taking this application for the number of units. You're saying there was an error made there I don't think an error was made there, and I'm not gonna say that they made an error. I think they studied it, they counseled with the county administrator, and I don't know, maybe the county attorney, I don't know that part, but I don't think we need to add on something that may be our opinion, that is really a fact of law, and I don't think we need to go that route to do that. So
Well, that's true, and I didn't mean to, I think the discussion was around use. I'm not suggesting that there was necessarily a mistake to getting here. I know there's been some discussion around that, but I don't see the incompatibility. I know the discussion was around the density requirements for units in a country lodge. That's a different matter than the actual building of 9 independent dwelling units to begin with, regardless of how they're going to be used. It's a residential use, even if it's a lodging. So I agree, maybe we don't need to go there, but I want to be clear what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. I think the discussion that's taken place has been very reasonable about the density around a country inn. I don't see that as the question here, but I also agree with you, it's not necessary. So if you'd rather leave that out, we can, I guess, take that up down the road, because I definitely think on the safety and the water issues alone, it fails.
So we have a motion from Mr. Sis and a second by Mr. Henry.
Can you restate the motion?
I would like to add something. We're saying safety is the condition of Woodward Road, because that is one of the main complaints that we heard here tonight. So the main theme is that safety and the condition of Woodward Road. That needs to be in there some way.
I think the central point is the increased traffic and the resulting safety and noise and impact on neighbors. The slope and water issue is also a general provision that was cited earlier. So, take your pick.
Well, I said environmental quality, that fit in there in those categories, and that listed very nicely on the principle 7 that a judge can look at.
Well, the comprehensive plan itself is not legally binding. The code is much tighter than that. So yes, we have to comport with the comprehensive plan, but there are other provisions that you could argue would support this kind of use. So I think we need to stick to things that are in the code.
Mr. Sisk, you want to start over?
Wow. So I'm
Section 175. Proposed use will result in.
okay. So, thank you, sir. So I'll make the recommendation that's denial based on 17053, was it G? This one here. H. The proposed use will not cause undue, sorry. The proposed use will
Cause undue impact
on the historic or scenic qualities of the immediate area.
and also proposed use will result in unsafe conditions.
Yes, the G, basically G there, proposed use will result in unsafe conditions in relation to the community facilities existing plan and adequate police, fire protection, danger, congestion, travel, and rescue services. All that in one bullet.
Furthermore, if I may, Mr. Sisk, along with 17047C, that this proposed use is not compatible with the by-rights uses in this particular zoning district and area. And further, that under principle 7 of the comp plan, the environmental quality and the real character would be adversely affected by this, and residential neighborhoods in this area would be affected too. The Woodard Road is not sufficient to carry the proposed traffic volume that would be created by this use. How's that sound?
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, still, I believe, based on the general standards and the conditions and restrictions that were just read, along with the previous statements. Is there anything additional to add to the motion?
So just to be clear, it's Mr. Sisk's motion and Mr. Henry's second? I thought that was a friendly amendment. I just want to make sure.
Yes, I
the
believe it
record
is a friendly amendment.
And just
And you
accepted.
gentlemen understand it the same way, and it's like all accepted? Mr. Sis?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
And you're seconding the motion?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Light. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, that takes us, the next item on the agenda, take a brief recess. You all are welcome to stay. You are welcome to stay.
Could I say something to the group here? Could I have your attention? I would like to invite each and every one of you to come to the next Board of Supervisors meeting and just bring up and get something done about the unsafe conditions on Woodward Road. Yes, I live on Woodward. I have property and own a house on Woodward Road as well. And an area that fire truck and another vehicle cannot pass. And I've heard some of y'all say the same thing. I've brought this up time and time before, but I've gotten no action from the Board of Supervisors or BoardDocs. So I'm asking y'all to come out and just try to do something about it, okay?
Thanks, Tommy. Thank you, everyone. Let's take a 5-minute recess. The next item on the agenda is item E, public comment. This is your opportunity to speak about anything on the agenda this evening. If you'd like to make a comment, please approach the microphone, identify yourself in the district in which you reside, and address your comments to the commission. This is your opportunity to speak about any item on the agenda tonight.
Oh, yeah. The tremor that goes through the county when 9 structures or more, it sounds like there's an extra structure, like, it's such a tremor because it is so contrary to law. I think it's also contrary to precedent, as Mr. Atkins points out, that someone wanting to build 3 residences was denied that right because of law and because of everyone's right in Rappahannock to share the value that conservation of the nature of the entire county is consistently maintained. So this was a weird and strange tremor to think that all of a sudden, well, it didn't apply somehow. So precedent and law really matter in this decision. Thank you.
Could you restate your name and district just for the record, please?
Thomas Spande, S-P-A-N-D-E.
Thank you.
On Woodward Road.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, thanks.
Anyone else? Tori?
Yes, Tony Van Acker from Castleton, Stumble, Hawthorne. I'm just pointing to an agenda item that's coming up on contractor yards, and I looked over the documentation that was provided on BoardDocs, and it seems like you're combining definitions for junkyards and contractor shops and automobile graveyards. And then you added in Article 6, after Article 2 and Article 6, you added paragraphs P and Q. But you forgot to go back and look at paragraph H, which deals with junkyards, and the definition of junkyards is being deleted. You need to modify paragraph H.
Thanks, Tori. Anyone else wishing to speak?
My name is Karen Hunt, Jackson District. I'll keep it brief. I've looked over the proposed zoning ordinance amendment on the contractor yards. I have not had an opportunity to really sit down and review and research it in depth. I understand the background here, I think we all do. While it makes sense in light of that experience to amend the current language regarding contractor yards, we're also amending current ordinance language for automobile graveyards and junkyards. And while it may make sense to do so, the Board of Supervisors has indicated the desire to move expediently on this and fast track it here. So I'm also wondering if there's been any research to see what some of the ordinance language, maybe in other counties, that may have worked well for them. We can't be the only jurisdiction to deal with this sort of thing. I just feel like it would be wise to make sure we are enacting well thought out amended language and aren't inadvertently enacting something in a reactionary way based on a recent experience. I don't know if the board has retained additional zoning expertise on a consulting basis. It might make sense to bounce this off them based on what came to light and how it was crafted at the last board meeting. So I think it's important that we are thoughtful about this, and if we need to tweak it a bit to make it right, I think we should take the time to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, sir. Well, before you have a second shot at the apple, does anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
I'm not really,
I'm sorry, could you use the microphone, please?
my name is John Nicholas Upley, Piedmont District, 361 Wood Road. I'm really not sure this is an appropriate place to talk about this, but it was brought up earlier this evening. But Woodward Road is a dangerous road. 60 years ago, I got hit by a hit-and-run driver. I was standing on the corner, didn't hear what came. It hit me. Luckily, I was able, as a young person, to get up, shake it off, and not have bad effects, except that now when I'm on Woodward Road, it's an interesting situation, especially with electric cars. You can't hear things. I don't know whether it's a car or it's bicycles coming downhill. In a lot of cases, I can't see them. But I got to move quickly off to the side and then wait and see what is this. And the reaction time is very short. I'm going to bring this up because we're talking about safety on the roads. And I don't know who to talk to about. We need to get these roads posted to a much lower speed limit because especially the people that are coming out to do the hiking, whatever it is, they see a structural road and they floor it. And it's sort of frightening for a person like me because it's getting more, you used to hear the engine roar. Now it's the gravel on the tires. There's not much reaction time. We need to slow down those speed limits. Get them posted. I know we don't have, the sheriff can't go around and catch all these people, but if it is posted lower, there's some conscientious people that will drive slower. But I have heard, well, it's not posted. No. Anyway, thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your time. Sure.
I encourage you to come to the next Board of Supervisors meeting and express these concerns because I'm being redundant, but I've been beating a dead horse to try to get some safety improvements done to Woodward Road.
Yeah.
And so we need the Board of Supervisors support, and then they need to go to BoardDocs and get some of these things correct. And it can be done.
Yeah.
BoardDocs got programs, but Board of Supervisors going to have to add some problem and proof together.
I don't want to see Woodward Road expanded. I just want it slowed down.
I'm not talking about expanding either, but I'm talking about smoothing up these washboards that you got, and also put ditches on there where we got proper drainage, and opening up areas to where the two vehicles can pass safely and not hit mirrors and fenders.
Oh, I understand that, and especially clearing out the drainage. I do that for my place, for about 100 yards. I think my tractor up to clear that. The washer board is the only thing right now slowing the traffic down. So you turn your head up, and they'll even go faster. But I agree, we got to do something, and I think.
How about speed bumps? I like those ones that are so high.
We
You get some air.
Yeah, Stephanie's a but, so that, yeah, to me, it was, until something can be done or should be done, let's get the speed limit down to where we don't have some kids or people running down.
And also, we need no cut-through traffic coming off of Estes Mill Road and Woodward Road onto the rest of Woodward Road that goes to the main street.
Yeah.
A lot of the traffic that comes off out of what is known as Old Jenkins Hall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Comes and cuts through the shortcut on the bad part, the really bad part of Woodward Road, It's creating more problems for us, and they do speed, and yes, I agree with you, we do speed limits posted on that road.
I think there's a ripe opportunity with some of the new programs coming out in the Commonwealth that enable localities to improve roads in ways that they have previously not been able to, but still keep them gravel roads.
Yeah.
So I think this will be an expanding discussion at the board level, and I don't want to curtail your discussion, but I do think that there's new opportunities that we will be looking into in the county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank each one of you for being here.
Thank you.
You know, as a citizen, it's really encouraging to see how you work together, how you discuss all the issues, and it's a pleasure being around you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? 20?
Then can I ask you where H is?
Article 6.
Article 6.
It comes before DQ, somewhere in that list. Anyway, thank you very much for the second swing at it tonight. About the contractor yards zoning ordinance that you're looking at amending, I know we have a lot of whatever you want to call it, junk yards, automobile graveyards, or contractor yards, and we know some of the situations that have happened recently in the county, but there are plenty of places that I can point to in the county where accumulations of older inoperable vehicles are found. And the question I have before the commission here is the zoning ordinance have a grandfather clause in for people who have pre-existing facilities like this, that they're no longer held to task zoning ordinance requirements?
There's one on 211 that's apparently been grandfathered in.
Yeah.
It looks like to me now's the time when we're redoing this, that we can ungrandfather those.
It looks like, and it's on the agenda, so we can address it when we're working through the item on the agenda. Is there any other public comment? If there's no additional public comment, we have no old business. That takes us to new business. Zoning ordinance amendment recommendation for contractors' yards. And just to address Mr. Van Acker's point, I think what Aaron said is under junkyard, it says see automobile graveyard, junkyard, junk.
Yeah.
And then up above that is automobile graveyard, junkyard, junk. And that supplants the previous definition.
But looking at the additional standards in Article 7 for junkyards, it still uses the old term, additional standards for junkyards. And I think the remedy for the problem that Mr. Mahacker astutely pointed out would be to change the additional standards for junkyards to read additional standards for
The new phrase.
yes, automobile graveyard / junkyard / junk.
Michelle, have you captured that note? Can you make sure that we get that at the board level? We're going to want to make sure that that gets corrected.
I think that's what the intent is, but I'm not 100% confident about that. I think that's what the intent. Either that or I would have thought they would have proposed eliminating subpart H, but that didn't seem to be the intent.
Yeah. Is there any other discussion?
So what are these junkyards that are further away than 1,000 feet from a primary highway? Why can't they be junkyards too? Aren't some junkyards just junkyards because, I mean, it's not a use, but when some just become junkyards inherently because you can't throw stuff away. Some become junkyards because you actually are scrapping metal and using parts. And all I can think of is My old friend in Chester Gap lived at the end of Rock Ridge Road, and he had a neighbor behind him that in the fall, you could see about 75 rusty old cars. I mean, they were awesome. They were from the 30s and the 40s, and I don't know if the Sea Locks put them up there way back when. But the woods was peppered with them. Well, he's 1,000 feet off any main road. But doesn't that collection of inoperable vehicles a junkyard?
Well, the road going up on Chester Gap is not a primary road.
I think the distinction in these different levels is actually not dealing with the junkyards. This is differentiating contractor's office, shop, yard from junkyards, and now trying to differentiate that which is being used for something that isn't permanent abandonment. So,
But we broadly expanded the definition of a junkyard, didn't we?
I don't, well, I guess they did expand it, yeah. But that doesn't have any bearing on the two different levels.
Well, it sounds like we're doing two different things here.
Yes, and that's why we're changing the definition of things that, if we adjust the wording, are subject to subpart H, and then we're adding additional standards of two different levels for things that meet this new definition of contractor's office, shop, materials, storage yard.
Right. So why are we futzing around with junkyards?
Well, because I'm not sure who's the we in that, but I mean, what's here does it. So only reason it's been pointed out, if we're going to do this, it's an incomplete job because the additional standards doesn't refer to the new term that's replaced junkyards in the definitions. I haven't compared closely what the difference, the current definition of automobile, graveyard, junkyard, junk, how that compares to the old definition of junkyard. I suppose they're right here if you want to parse them.
Well, it's a lot more detailed.
It's longer, too.
Well, because it's including the automobile graveyard, as well as the junkyard, right?
Yeah.
Well, since we discussed it and brought this out, would it be appropriate to, with Mr. Curry and Art, look at it and work out the correction of it now?
I mean, I suppose it would still apply since junkyard still goes there and it basically equates it to graveyard, junkyard. So, I mean, I think what we're proposing to do is helpful, but maybe not necessary. Because junkyard is still defined, but we're just.
So why don't we just let them bring it to their attention?
Well, I guess why is this before us?
Yeah, that's the question. I think that's the question.
So at the May 6th board meeting, they made a motion to expedite this amendment, and the planning commission will join the board at their June 3rd regular meeting for a joint public hearing on this.
But what brings this to the attention of the Board of Supervisors?
I mean, I think that there have been some instances in recent history where there's questions about what these definitions are and where they would apply. And it's an attempt to bring more specificity and enforceability and refine the definitions and expectations, because at the end of the day, we all know that the one thing that the county wants and hopes for is compliance. And so the more specific we can be and the more detail and enforceability we can have, the more compliance we can work for And that is, at the end of the day, a good thing.
So didn't we break this amount to where we brought something out that they can address and be prepared for in the June board meeting?
I think so, and I'm sure Mr. Curry and Art will be on hand at the next joint meeting. If there's any details that we need to work through, we can do that at that time as well.
So there's no action for us on this tonight, this
No.
is kind of almost informational then in respect.
And to see if you had any concerns or feedback before the June meeting.
And can we check on availability that everybody would be able to attend that meeting?
Everybody, believes they'll be able to attend the regularly scheduled board supervisor meeting in June?
I will not be here in person.
You could attend the
I couldn't attend the Zoom.
I know you'll be there, Tommy.
Yeah.
Have all day.
June 3rd?
Yes, sir.
They know, I don't think I have it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I bring up one more point for your business? And this is just as informative for next month for the planning commission regular meeting. We've had a text amendment come in. They paid their application fee, so we're gonna take it to public hearing next month before the planning commission. Of a proposed amendment to the tourist home section of the county code and the zoning ordinance, regarding, whether, tourist homes could be on, if the minimum acreage could be waived if they're not on a paved road versus unpaved. It's literally the deletion of one word that this applicant is proposing. So.
Okay.
I just wanted to give everyone a heads up for next month.
For scheduling purposes. Okay. Sounds good. So it sounds like we'll have a quorum for June 3rd?
We were talking the evening, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that 7 o'clock usually?
Yes, sir. All right. Sounds like we'll be in good shape. That takes us to a roundtable discussion. Does anyone have anything else for the good of the commission? All right, then.
I would just say, in light of the earlier conversation, I think it exposed some questions about the interplay between these definitions, dwelling unit, for example, and some of these density matters. I know we chose in the end, I think prudently not to use that dependent, but I still think for future reference, that there's some questions there, and I'd like to maybe get Art or Gary or whomever to engage with us on those questions, and so we can get a more definitive answer about the legal implications.
I would just say that as the board's representative to the commission, of course they get our vote, our motion and vote, but I also make a report to the board, and I'm also the elected representative for the district in question, and I do think that's a legitimate question that people pose, and I would be remiss if I didn't pursue an answer for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So more to come on that. We have our joint public hearing on June 3rd with the board of supervisors, and,
That would be 7 p.m.
yes. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so moved.
Thank you, Steph. And a second?
A second.
Mr. Light, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Okay, the minutes.